welcome SADDOs to the next episode of the Sitcom Archive Deep Dive Overdrive, or SADDO for short. I am Alison Barton-Simmons.
Now then, I'm Eggs Benedict.
We are currently deep diving the John Sullivan series Dear John, and we are up to Series 2, Episode 2.
And we usually say at this point that you can watch along with us by visiting our website or going on to Dailymotion, but it looks like all the Dear John clips have been pulled off Dailymotion, all of the full episodes. So presumably Forces TV got their lawyers on the case and said, what's this doing on for you?
Get them
Or
snatched.
even the BBC. Yeah, so all of the embeds on our website no longer work, and Forces TV are no longer showing it. So we're talking about a TV show that you got no access to unless you bought the DVDs.
So, Forces TV, have they finished showing it all now? Is that the crack?
Apparently, yeah, they're not showing it anymore. Well, I mean, they may repeat at some point, but it's
okay.
not on the schedules at the moment. So I guess the only place you can probably, for the moment, catch up with the episodes before listening to us is on our Facebook group, because as things stand, I'm posting the entire episode in our Facebook group, and Facebook don't seem to be doing anything about it currently. So if you join our Facebook group, you should be able to watch the episode in full before listening to our deep dives of it.
Oh, that's good news. That's good news.
Hmm.
So this episode was shown on September the 14th, 1987. Do you have the name of the episode, Ben?
I think from last week, wasn't it called Confidence?
I think it was. And we've got one of the characters that appeared last week back in this episode as well for
More's the pity.
For another show. Yes. Yes, indeed. But before we start, as we have done with both the previous series that we've deep dived of The Good Life and 40 Towers, we have got some Dear John limerick.
Yeah, I'm always a little bit cautious about this.
I get really enthusiastic about doing the limericks, and then when I actually sit down to try and do them, I just get complete writer's block. But we should just give it a go. We'll see what we've got.
We'll give it a go. I've only got a couple, so you might have to.
Okay.
You might have to cover me somewhat here.
Okie dokie. Well, I've got a John one. Shall I start with a John?
Okay.
Okay, I apologise in advance. John was a teacher at school whose clothing was very uncool. His ex was a bitch and a cheating old witch who took poor old John for a fool.
Oh, yes, that sums up the tragedy of John Lacey.
Is this there in a nutshell?
It is. Very good, Al. I'll give you my first one. I'm really not committing to these. At home, a recluse name of Eric, who really was rather pathetic, invented this Burke and swanned round his Kirk with a Tony Manero aesthetic.
Well done for the rhyming of aesthetic. That's fab.
Thank you.
I've got a Kirk one as well. / Eric. Kirk was a man on the pull, whose diary did always seem full, but he fibbed about tons, like sleeping with nuns, and as Eric, he was just rather dull.
Hold on, what's dull rhyming with there?
Pull and full.
Oh yeah, all right. I'm sorry. Sorry for questioning it.
Do you think I double rhymed?
I thought you just picked a random word at the end. Yeah, sorry. I must have got distracted by the line 4 and 5, 3 and 4 even.
Some slam poetry.
I was listening to our friends at British Sitcom History podcast, and
yes,
Gareth was saying how performance poets can basically get away with just saying any old shite, and it's true, isn't it?
It's just word vomit, isn't it? When you do that kind of poetry.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he was talking about Craig Charles because it was a Red Dwarf episode, which is really good actually. Okay. So recommend you listen to that if you haven't already. Okay, I've got another one.
Okay.
Next door there lived Mrs Lemensky, which doesn't quite rhyme with Kachansky. She invaded John's space and called him a fruitcase, but in the end they become quite firm friendsky.
I love it.
Bit ambitious, that one, eh?
Oh, I've got a Kate one.
Oh, great. Okay.
They're getting decidedly shit from now on.
Okay.
Not that the other two were amazing, but here we go. Kate was quite cold, it is true, and 3 marriages had left her so blue. But her friends at the club took her out to the pub, and there Kirk tried his best to woo.
It works. It scans. I like that one. That's good. Got any others? Because I'm fresh out.
I've got 3 more.
Oh, go on then. And if they're awful, I'll cut them.
Right, that's fine. That's fine. Louise was the head of the club, who dragged members off to the pub. As they drank, she would probe. With her eyes, she'd disrobe and give the men's legs a quick rub.
Okay. The mind boggles.
Sexual predator Louise.
You didn't try and rhyme something with Arnott, did you?
I didn't know. Barnett!
Mm.
Oh, I've missed a trick there. Anyway, with that observation, Mrs A wore a fabulous hat, but Kirk behaved like a big twat. The nuts that he's threw all went in, except a few, while the group sat around and did chat.
Very good. I like it.
Right, I think this is my last one. I just got myself out of my misery. Ralph was somebody who liked to stay in alone and eat stew.
Did he?
So to make him feel better, he became a go-getter at the disco shouting boogaloo.
There's definitely one questionable line in that one.
There is. I'm sure he did, though, at some point, staying alone.
He probably did,
and eat stew. I was trying to think of just a really dull food
that he would eat.
Yeah.
It's a shame that his terrapin wasn't called stew.
Terrapin stew.
Yeah, never mind.
So there we go for your listening pleasure. Limericks from Dear John.
If you have any better than that, which won't be hard, then send them in to us and we'll read them out maybe next time round. Do you know what? I'm just going to make a quick clarification from like an episode we did 8 episodes ago.
Okay, 8 episodes ago. Okay.
Yeah, I've recently discovered that Jean Chalice isn't related to John Chalice whatsoever.
Oh no, really? Are they not married, like you said?
No, I found, I don't know what I was Googling. Person's Google histories between them and the keyboard, I think. But
of course it is, yeah. Don't need to divulge, no.
Found tweets from John Chalice. He was quite an active Twitter person before he died.
Oh, right.
Loads of people had asked him it over the years, and he's quite responsive as well. Quite active, wasn't he, in a sort of Only Fools and Horses community sort of thing. And loads of people had asked him, and he's like, no relation. People have written, I think the Wikipedia says I was married to her, but I've never even met her.
Oh my God. Right, okay. Oh, well, that's a good clarification then. Right.
It is a good clarification, but I did discover that Jean Chalice did have her own radio show on BBC Radio 2, I think, in the 70s.
That's really interesting.
And it was really popular.
Oh.
So she's actually quite well known for that. So I might see if I can find like a clip from her DJing days.
That'd be nice. I wonder if she sort of speaks in the same way.
Don't think so. You wouldn't think that's much of a BBC voice.
No.
But who'd have thought she'd be a DJ like Dazzling Darren?
I wonder if she shouts like Boogaloo. See what you can find. Oh, that's exciting. Okay, shall we start our deep dive then?
Let's get stuck in.
Okie doke.
Dear John, by the time you read these lines, I'll be gone. Life goes on, right or wrong. Now it's all been said and done, dear John. Seems we've sung love's last song, dear John.
So this episode opens up at the 1-to-1 club. And Louise is busying round. She's putting papers out onto seats. And Mrs Arnott, bless her, is following around and telling her all about her daughter who lives in Sheffield and works for the Save the Children Fund. Tosh is there again after last week. He's returned for another run at the 1-to-1 club. This time in a leather waistcoat, but more about that later. Like any good narcissist, he links the conversation back to how he once played a gig in Sheffield, opening for Brian Poole and the Tremolos. Mrs Arnott says she was there because she followed him round the country to watch Ricky Fortune and the Fortunates.
Yeah,
I can't imagine her being a
groupie.
I don't know what would it be. What would it be if you were a groupie of Ricky Fortune? Would you?
Well, you'd think it would be a Fortunate, but that's the name of the band itself, isn't it? An Unfortunate, perhaps.
An Unfortunate, there we go. Oh. Ricky starts to tell John about the ladies in the front rows at these gigs who would throw their bras at him. But I couldn't tell. Mrs Arnott, she pulled her face, but I couldn't tell whether she was offended, upset, or gutted that it wasn't her that had thrown a bra on stage.
Maybe she was embarrassed because it was her.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, it's difficult to tell, isn't it? She pulls that face, sort of a comedy gurning face quite a bit, and you're not entirely sure what it's meant to signify.
No, there was no indication really of what it was in response to.
No. I would sort of guess that it's more likely it was like distaste.
Okay.
That she had for the bra-throwing women.
She then goes on and tells the group about her daughter, who is working with the charity to help with the famine in Mozambique. And she'd seen clips of what was going on over there, and it was making her cry. So she decided that she wanted to help in some way. And the group sort of read into that Mrs Arnott wants to fly out to Southeast Africa to get involved with helping these children in the famine. And John says he can't quite believe it. And Louise chimes in, yes, in that hat, which made me laugh loads. She talks about catching a non-stop coach from Victoria Station. At this point, I thought, blimey, that is a long journey. That is a long journey from Victoria Station. But then it turns out she's only going to Sheffield so that she can look after her grandchildren so that her daughter can go to Mozambique, which makes more sense. Yes.
Yeah.
Louise says that they're going to have a party to say goodbye to Mrs Arnott.
Who's only going for like a month or something, you would assume.
Yeah, she's not leaving forever. She's going to go on...
No, she says she'll be back.
Yeah. And she says to Louise, well, don't do anything special. And very quickly Louise says, oh, all right.
Yeah.
Give it with one hand and take it away with the other. Kirk tells Tosh that when he first came to the group, he wasn't sure if Tosh was actually telling the truth about being a rock star or if he was a jerk. And he said he gave him the benefit of the doubt and realises now that he is just a jerk. Which is, Kirk's quite mean, isn't he, with Ricky Fortune?
Well, he's quite mean with everyone, really.
He is, but...
He likes to take the piss.
Yeah, it just feels a bit... Oh, it makes me feel a bit uncomfortable when he's so mean to him.
I mean, he's clearly just jealous of the attention, and he's playing the spy card quite heavy now, isn't he?
Constantly.
Talking about his instinct being the difference between life and death and things like this.
Yeah. Tosh says that he doesn't really get Kirk at all. And he does actually question whether he is a spy, and Kate sort of plays along and says, yeah, he is.
Anybody would think he's a spy.
He is.
A spy? You shouldn't have said that, Kate.
There's even been a book and a television series about Kirk's exploits behind the Iron Curtain. You may have seen it. Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Dickhead.
I'd watch the hell out of that.
I knew you'd like that bit. I tell you what, it makes you wonder about what they did in America to make him a genuine spy, Kirk St. Moritz.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to have to deep dive one of them and see how Kirk differs. Yeah. Now, there's a reference here, isn't it, to Freddie in the Dream as totally crowbarred in.
It is crowbarred in, yeah.
Really
so much
clumsily.
So that I didn't realise it until the end, that I'd sort of missed the gist of this, yeah.
My cousin works for a show business agent, and she knows Freddie and the Dreamers. Not in the biblical sense, of course, but she's on their Christmas card list. Oh, no, Louise. Do you want to know a secret? Was a hit for Billy J. Kramer.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
I know. I'm just saying she knows Freddie and the Dreamers.
So?
Yeah, there's a real tenuous link.
But it comes back later on. Tosh,
he reminisces about the fans trying to break down the doors when they were at gigs. And Kirk asks, is it because they couldn't get out of the windows? He's really sticking the knife in, isn't he? Sylvia says that her ex-husband once saw him and asks if he'd ever been on the Sooty Show. And Tosh is really offended by this.
I wouldn't be. I'd be chuffed to be on a Sooty Show.
Yeah.
Jeff Capes used to be on it all the time. He loved it, didn't he?
Yeah. He then goes into some detail about his wife. And he throws in that he once played on the same bill as Elvis. Now, that would have been... Surely that's your opener with any sort of conversation about being a musician.
Yeah.
But he just sort of drops it into conversation here.
I think he's dropping it into conversation and he's holding court in the way Kirk does, which is why Kirk's giving him the filthy look.
Yeah.
But I think Kirk's not only jealous of the attention he's getting, I think he's probably jealous of the fact that he's a much more convincing bullshitter than he is.
Yes.
Because I'm not convinced this Elvis thing is even true, you know.
Because Kirk he's quite a conspiracy theorist, isn't he? I think Kirk as well. And he says that Elvis isn't even dead, you know. And neither is Buddy Holly or John Lennon.
Yeah, they all fake their own deaths.
Yeah. Ricky tells us that his wife is called Moonstar, and he once thought that she was Cher at a gig when he saw her. So Kirk is he hates the fact that he is not the centre of attention in this conversation, and randomly just adds, "The last time I saw Janis Joplin, she was windsurfing." This really made me laugh. It doesn't get the laugh that it deserves, though.
No.
The audience didn't laugh, and I was pretty hysterical because I just thought that was brilliant. What a brilliant line.
That's all right, Mrs. Boyd Peters. You have that one on me.
Now, there's a weird #different-times conversation about Moonstar being a Sioux.
Yeah.
Which we understand means Sioux Indian, but the group then go off at a tangent and think that he's just confused and that she's actually called Sue and not Moonstar.
Yes, that's Sue as in short for Susan, and Sylvia explains that at length, doesn't she?
Yeah, but he just eventually he just insists that she was a lovely, gentle, beautiful woman.
Sorry, Ricky. Moon who?
Star. Moonstar. That was my wife's name.
It's not the sort of name one overhears that often in Waitrose, is it?
Well, actually, she was Sue.
I thought it might be that sort of thing.
What sort of thing?
Well, Sioux or Cherokee. I once read a book about North America.
No, Ralph. Her real name was Sue. Susan. Sue. See?
No, she was really called Moonstar. She was a Sioux Indian.
Sorry, Rick. Sorry, Ralph.
She was a direct descendant of Sitting Bull.
The Sitting Bull.
That's right, yeah.
Did she do that to your scalp then?
Oh.
Well, he says she was a descendant of Sitting Bull.
Yeah.
Because Kirk's taking the piss constantly, as he does.
Yeah.
I thought, I felt little bit like I didn't get the references because I don't know a hell of a lot about any of that stuff.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it felt a bit over my head. I felt like if there was a documentary on BBC Two about Squawking Bird that I could have reserved for the length of this televisual feast, that would help me understand what was going on.
Yeah. Apparently, all the Fortunates from the band got put in prison for drug smuggling.
Out of the Yemen?
And yes, indeed. The work ran out, the money ran out, and then Moonstar ran out. So this is how he's found himself at the one-to-one club. Louise, she's ready to pounce with the question, were there any sexual problems? And the group all groan because they've heard it so many times now that every member that turns up gets interrogated about their sexual history. But then he says, yeah, and her face just lights up.
Were there any sexual?
Yeah.
I mean, And in what way did these problems manifest themselves?
She realises what she's doing and she calms it down a little bit. But I thought it was a really well-timed gag. She's like obviously waiting for someone to go, yes, there were, and then divulge all the details. But when they do, it makes her feel a bit uncomfortable, I think.
She can't contain her excitement to begin with.
No, she can't.
And she has to sort of rein it in. To be fair to Ricky, who, as I said before, I don't like as a character, he's very open, isn't he? Which is unusual of men of the time. She asks him, and he thinks about it and sort of summons up the courage. You can see him going,
yeah.
What shall I be honest about this? And he is honest, and can't decide if it's a brave or a foolish thing to be in that particular group with Kirk there. And
yeah, he's happy sharing though.
Yeah, I mean, what he's sharing is that basically the drugs meant that he couldn't perform.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he describes that as the drugs and the booze didn't help him perform the simplest of tasks. And Louise is quite flustered and she ends the meeting really quickly.
Yeah. The moment she gets some proper juicy stuff to get stuck into, she runs away from it.
Yeah, can't cope with it. But Tosh is crying by this stage and he's feeling really sad. So John sort of takes him under his wing and asks him if he wants to go for a drink so that he can help. And they leave the meeting with Kirk doing a really racist Native American call as they're going out the door. Different times though. John asks Louise about this do for Mrs Arnott leaving. He suggests, why don't they hire a hall for a swinging 60s do Ralph can DJ, and they can raise some money for Mrs Arnott's daughter's charity and get Ricky to perform. So John's sort of like trying to tie everything up so that everybody's kept happy with one single event. And it's I think it's quite nice, isn't it? It's quite a nice suggestion.
Well, this is because he's an empathetic person. He's
Indeed.
thinking of what I can do for people all the time, isn't he?
Yes, what can I do to help?
I mean, the mistake he makes here is he doesn't actually state Ricky by name. He just says a 60s pop star on the bill. And Louise is, oh, yeah, that might work. But clearly, this is why we had mention of the Freddie and the Dreamers early on.
Yes, the crowbarred relative that she's got.
Yeah, exactly. But she has a great line in this bit as well, where when John suggests Dazzling Darren, she says, Dazzling Darren, he's closed more clubs than the Vice Squad.
Oh. John goes to speak to Ricky and sort of tell him all about what he's just spoken to Louise about, and then Louise is left imagining being asked about her charity work and grants herself a damehood in this imaginary conversation as well. Wow.
Do you have a family, Louise?
No, they couldn't. My husband had a vein.
We're then in John's flat in the next scene, and he's going through his wardrobe. At first I thought, what the hell is he doing? And then I remembered it's a 60s themed do that John's planned in his head on his own. And he's trying on all his old clothes, and he tries on a sheepskin waistcoat and a headband. And then, I think I heard this right, says he can't believe he used to wear that. He looks like a womble with ringworm.
Yeah, he did say that, yeah.
I just didn't get it. I thought, is there a joke?
I didn't get the ringworm thing, but the womble thing, definitely.
Yeah. Definitely,
but the ringworm, I'm not entirely sure.
No, I wasn't sure that was appropriate. He apparently wore all this garb at the teacher training college that he went to. And there's a knock at the door, and he quickly just takes everything off, apart from the headband. And it's Ricky at the door. He was passing, and he wanted to call in.
He's doing his peace and love sign, isn't he, like Ringo?
He is. Oh, no.
Peace and love, peace and love. I'm not signing any autographs, peace and love. He is Liverpudlian as well, isn't he, Ricky? Well, he sounds it.
I think the accent that he does is, I'm not sure, is he really in real life?
Oh, I don't know. It sounded quite fake, but it might have just been a Liverpool accent of a time.
Okay.
Do you know the way accents, you probably hear different types of Bolton accent, I guess, when you're from a place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might have been just a slightly different one, but there's something weird in the way he says his R's, which just doesn't sound authentic. It didn't sit
right, yes. That's what made me question whether he was officially a Scouser.
I've not seen him in enough other than I've only really seen him in the bill. He wasn't Scousing that, was he?
No. Rick has arrived with a bottle of booze in his pocket, and he offers John a drink, but John says, no thanks, I've got school in the morning. And Rick says, where do you keep your glasses? And John says, I keep it up there, which was just another sort of circle around the fact that John has a sad bedsit life on his own.
Yeah.
With his one little glass. They talk about the gig at the disco at weekend, and Tosh says that he can't do it. John tries to talk him round though, and he says he knows nothing about the place, and he can't do it because he's scared, and he's got a real fear of failing, which again goes back to what you were saying before about how he was so open about his feelings, which was just not very usual during the 80s, I don't think, was it?
No, I don't think so. I think you would be ridiculed a lot by fellow males for being so honest about your neuroses and stuff.
Yeah. Tosh says he can't get over the nightmare of Milton Keynes.
Yeah, I've been. I know what he means.
Yeah. He said he'd been playing there at a comeback not that long ago. He'd been terrified, and the young crowd of kids that were waiting for another band then started throwing things. He ran from the stage. John tries to talk him round, but Tosh says, have you ever had 100 kids hurling things at you? And John says, yeah, of course I have. I'm a teacher.
Yeah. But he's saying here, isn't he, that basically he wasn't a real musician, that the other fellas in the band, Mick, Lenny, Buzz and Crispin, which is a funny collection of names that John Sullivan's thought up, they were the real musicians, and he was only the frontman because he was the best looking. And essentially they were just a curated, manufactured band, like something Simon Fuller would have created, like
absolutely
the Spice Girls or Vanilla. You remember Vanilla?
Even Moonstar was part of the act as like a Yoko. They wanted like a Yoko, but she actually worked in a wimpy.
Yeah, she's just a PR thing. So I don't know if that sort of thing was as commonplace in the 80s as it certainly was in the 90s.
Yeah.
But,
Maybe
I mean, you
this
did
is a
have
start.
bands who were quite manufactured, but the manufactured, like, boy bands at least seem to have a lot more talent.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a bit unfair on I'm not trying to tar them all with the same brush, but certainly Simon Fuller's bands, like the Spice Girls and Vanilla, who were only put together for a bet.
Yeah.
To see if they could. That was famously a very chauvinistic bet, wasn't it? That was like, I bet you I can pick 5 munters and make them famous. Basically, was the bet with a song that was based on the Muppets.
Yeah. John gives him a bit of a talking to here and tells him to be grateful for what he has and to get on the stage. He says his fear is nothing compared to these children that Mrs Arnott's daughter is helping. He says, you're scared, they're bleeding petrified, which I thought was quite poignant.
Very impassioned, wasn't he?
Yes. I think he is quite I see John as being someone that... We already know that he's someone that helps other people and he wants to go out of his way to help other people. And I think it stretches across his entire life, doesn't it? He's someone that wants to see other people be all right.
It is, yeah. It is that. He's also helping Ricky by giving him a sort of, sometimes tough love is needed, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the cringe scene that follows...
The manic air
God.
guitar and the singing into the fake microphone. And he sings his one famous song that's got 2 lines that we hear over and over again.
And the moves that he does, like the sort of Tony Manero type moves, I suppose, aren't they?
It's very creepy. There's a well-timed knock at the door, though, luckily. And it's Mrs Lemensky. What is all this racket noise I hear? I love her. And then John introduces her to Ricky, and Mrs Lemensky says to John, you're crazy, man. First you're learned teacher, now you're Beastie Boy. I think, did she say that? Did she say that you're a Beastie Boy?
Beastie
I
Boy,
love that. I think Mrs Lemensky's got like a secret subscription to like Enemy or something, because
Maybe.
an old lady that just lives in a bedsit knows about Beastie Boys.
Well, also, she recognises Ricky from the Sooty Show.
She does, I love that.
She's obviously got secret interests, doesn't she?
I love that the joke sort of arcs all the way through this episode.
Well, she does ask him, first of all, she says, are you a dick?
Are you a dick?
Yeah. What did that mean? Detective or what?
Or Ricky, Richard.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I
Maybe?
get it. Right,
Is
okay.
that what it is?
Yeah, it must be that, yeah.
She does say though, when Ricky tries to say, oh, it was probably Top of the Pops that you saw me on, and she says, no, it was Sooty, and you spoiled it.
Yeah. He doesn't half get some blows when he's down, this lad, doesn't he?
Bless him. In the next scene, they're at the disco, so it's all been organised, it's all been put on. Ralph is the DJ, which is brilliant. Kirk and Sylvia are doing a bit of a slow dance, and Ralph is playing My Boy Lollipop, and this might have been the first time I ever heard this song, because I'd never really heard music before like that, and I think that song itself stands out as being of like the time of the 60s, and just a really unusual sounding pop song. And I remember thinking, oh, I quite like that. I like the sound of that song.
Yeah, no, it's a nice song.
It is.
Actually, Dazzling Darren's putting on some decent records this time around.
I think he is.
Now he's confined to the 1960s.
Yes.
I mean, he does ruin him by shouting out things like, don't give me that jive. Get on down, yeah, and all that sort of stuff.
Bless him.
Do that funky thing.
Kirk says that he likes Sylvia's laugh. Oh, he's literally just trying to get his end away, I think, isn't he?
I think he's warming up, if anything. Oh. He's just sharpening his skills for
I think he is.
Later.
She says that her ex used to find it intensely irritating. And then she laughs and Kurt walks off. So he's obviously realised, yep, her ex is absolutely right. John turns up dressed to the nines in his 60s gear from his teacher training days, including the sheepskin waistcoat, coloured round glasses and headband. He realises quite quickly, though, that nobody else is dressed up.
Yep, no one's in costume. It's just himself. And that transpires, doesn't it, that it was a practical joke by Kirk.
What a knob. He tells John he's going to be going undercover soon as well, to Communist China. And if John can lend him the clothes, he could go as a stir-fried meal. Just no discomfort throughout that entire sentence.
You can, to be honest with you, I know we've not even finished this episode, but you can tell why it's the lowest rated Dear John episode.
Yeah.
Some of the gags are a stretch.
They don't fall well, do they?
The setup doesn't pay off. Yeah. It's just Just definitely the weakest of the bunch. I mean, everyone's allowed an off day, but
Of course they are.
this is definitely John Sullivan's.
Kate tells John that Ricky's actually arrived, and John goes to find him, and he's in the wings waiting, but he's like dressed as like a hybrid Gary Glitter, Alvin Stardust, in my opinion.
Yeah, which is more 70s, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not really 60s garb, is it?
It had a glam sort of feel to it, didn't it? Like platform shoes and these big tinfoil wing things sticking out of his shoulders.
Yeah.
John tries to give him some encouraging words, though, and wishes him the best of luck. He's ready for it as well, isn't he? You can tell that he's sort of psyched himself up and he's ready to get on stage and do his thing.
Well, sort of. I mean, he's sweating like a pregnant nun, isn't he, at this point? But he's
there. He's present.
Yeah, he's hyped. He's definitely hyped.
Yes, he is. Louise goes on the stage and she just turns Ralph's record off. She just like pulls the
needle, doesn't she, right across the vinyl.
So she goes onto the stage and we think that she's going to introduce Ricky to come on. But she doesn't. She sort of bigs up the act, but then introduces Freddie and the Dreamers.
Yep.
Which is the cousin or the relative and not Ricky at all. And so you sort of think, oh God, this has gone like horrendously wrong and Ricky's going to be really, really sad.
But if Ricky at least stayed behind the curtain, it wouldn't have been as bad. But he bounces out before she even says the name, which makes it all the more awkward.
Yeah. They come on and they start singing a song and sound a bit like Jerry and the Pacemakers. And Ricky looks really gutted. Kirk starts to throw nuts at him again. This nut thing is like it's obviously one of Kirk's things, isn't it? And says, "Bog off, bozo, leave it to the stars." And it's quite sad, isn't it?
It is sad. I don't know what's sadder, Ricky's disappointment or the performance of Freddie and the Dreamers with that dancing.
Yeah,
that was their thing, wasn't it?
Bizarre.
Have you seen? Do you remember that song? One of their big hits. Why do you do what you do to me?
Yeah.
If I only knew. And they were doing weird dances to that. I've seen that performed on stage.
Oh, really?
Like in their pomp. They did weird leg things. His knees must have been fucked by the end of it, the way he was sort of like hopping on the spot and kicking out. It was just really, really cringe dancing, isn't it? Perhaps
lots of stimulants involved to keep it up as well. I mean his legs.
Yeah.
God.
We're not casting aspersions about Freddie.
There's no truth in that. That's just my opinion. The audience are enjoying it, though, and they're singing along. And Ricky leaves because he's obviously really embarrassed and really sad.
Yeah. When John's out there talking to Ricky before he leaves in his tiny little car, which is a bit of a joke, Ricky says to him, "You said it was the first steps and it turned out to be the last rites." And that's quite poetic. And
it is.
And the tragedy of this guy, Ricky Fortune, is quite full on. And you know, when you think about Kirk's big reveal that he was Eric, and we discussed how John Sullivan compensated by ramping up the gags and turning what could have been a real tragedy into like a hyper comedy moment. This is absent here because he's just wallowing in his self-pity and he's saying, you know, "You're so bloody good" at John and getting really angry.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work because the scene, A, goes on too long, and B, we just really don't give a shit about Ricky in the same way we do about Kirk.
No.
And there's just not enough gags to levitate it like there were during Kirk's reveal. So it just doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. John explains to Louise that he thinks that Ricky's got confused because he thought he was going to be asked to be do the show, and Louise had already asked the cousin.
Yeah.
Freddie was a favour because of the charity. He came along because it would be a money-making thing for Save the Children. And the aim was that once Freddie had done a set for an hour and then went, that Ricky would take over for the rest of the night. But it obviously wasn't communicated very well because now Ricky's gone. But when John realises this, he legs it out shouting, "Ricky!"
Yeah.
really loud, chasing after him. And the episode finishes. It's an odd place to finish.
Seems we've sung love's last song, dear John.
Very anticlimactic as well. Very anticlimactic because, we get there's been a mix-up, but you would have thought perhaps, maybe they ran out of time, but perhaps a redemption would have been more satisfying, whereby Ricky hadn't quite left yet and he was able to catch him and say, and he was to have his moment. Not that I particularly care, because like I say, Ricky, better gone than back in the club as far as I'm concerned. But
that would have been better. That would have been a more rounded conclusion, I think, to that story, because he doesn't come back. It's not like he comes back next week.
No, thankfully not. He's gone now. So
that's him gone forever. Weird ending.
Yeah.
Did you have an MVP from this episode?
Do you know, I haven't written anything down, so I'm going to think of one on the fly.
Okay.
God, it's a bit like the other week when I couldn't think of anyone to give it to because no one impressed me that much.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you know what? I'm going to give it to Louise.
Okay.
I'm going to give it to Louise because she's very organised, isn't she?
She is.
Do you know what I mean? She's got everything lined up. She's always got a clipboard. She managed to call in the favour and get Freddie and I nearly called them Freddie and the Fortunes, what they're called. Freddie and the
Dreamers.
Yeah, she's very organised. And I haven't given her one yet, an MVP, and I think she deserves one. So I'm going to give it to Louise, yeah?
Yeah. I'm torn this week because, like you, it was all spread a bit thin this week, weren't it? There was no real character at the forefront of the story. I'm torn between John because of sort of instigating the do and to sort of incorporate all his friends who could help out but also be helped. And Mrs Arnott for going looking after her grandkids,
of course,
so her daughter can go to Mozambique.
I mean, she's barely in it, but that's probably the most lines she's had in any episode.
It is, and she had a real relevance, really, and she was a bit of a catalyst to the whole thing being a thing in this. I'm going to go for Mrs Arnott this week. Was
she even at that do? I didn't see her.
Maybe she'd already gone. Oh dear. Yeah, it was for her, weren't it? I'm still going to go for Mrs Arnott.
Well, do you know what? Louise fucked up by not communicating with the bands properly. She probably didn't communicate with Mrs Arnott properly.
Didn't tell Mrs Arnott that it was her leaving do. Yeah. She was that caught up in getting a dame hood.
I'm revoking her MVP. Yeah, I'm going to give it to John as well. I'm taking it off Louise because I realised that she really fucked up.
Oh, snatched away.
Sorry, Louise. You get any bric-a-brac?
Oh, I didn't.
I just got a couple of things just from John's flat when Ricky turned up. It was full of functional 1980s paraphernalia. There was like a traditional metal kettle that you'd put on a hob.
On the hob, yeah.
I mean, you still get them. You can still get them. There was like a portable TV that was probably 12 inches at the most. And there was like a traditional alarm clock with bells.
Yeah.
The side of his bed, all of which you can still get, I know. But they were just very much of their time in terms of their design and ubiquitousness. They were you would find them everywhere, wouldn't you? Those things at that time.
I think perhaps I didn't originally think of anything, but Ricky's costume that he had ready for going on stage is definitely of a time, and despite the fact that it didn't really fit into the 60s aesthetic,
of a wrong time.
It's of a wrong time. It was more of this sort of 70s glam era. It's not often, even bands that are still have one foot in glam, I'm thinking like The Darkness perhaps, who were very big on spandex and stage presence and costumes. Even their aesthetic doesn't stretch to tinfoil shoulder pads.
Massive collars, yeah.
And massive collars. So yeah, I'm gonna say that, despite the fact that it gives me the ick because it looks very Gary Glittery.
Yeah, he's kind of ruined that look.
He has.
He's also ruined the goatee for bald old men, hasn't he? Because if you're bald and you've got a little neat grey goatee, then you just look a bit noncy now.
You do now, yeah. In Thailand.
Got a lot to answer for,
isn't
he?
In Thailand?
He's
Vietnam.
Yeah, Vietnam, yeah. Well, he's been everywhere, hasn't he? Up to no good. He's a wrong gun.
He is. That leads me on quite nicely to Fashion Corner, though.
Okay.
Whatever happened to those clothes we wore? It seems we never wear those clothes no more. Fashion Corner.
Ricky Fortune, before he puts on his tinfoil Gary Glitter outfit, when he's first at the meeting, he's in like a black leather waistcoat, which it made me think of like Francis Rossi from Status Quo. You know, like an old rocker in the 80s, which I think that's the look I think they were going for with Ricky Fortune. Someone that had been big earlier, and now in the 80s, the double denim, the grandad collar on his shirt, the leather waistcoat. It's like an indicator of this is like an old, washed up rocker.
Yeah.
And I think they do it. They do it quite well. He's not a very. I don't know. It's not a particularly attractive look, but I think that's what they were going for. Mrs Arnott, when she first comes in, she's got a rain mac literally buttoned up to her ears. It's that highly buttoned up, and it's in that colour that all older people tended to have for their clothes. It might still be a thing. I think about my grandparents in like the 80s and 90s, and there was a colour that nanas and granddads wore, and it was like a fawn. There was like various shades of fawn, and they all had them, and shops sold them particularly for older people. My granddad had one, and if we ever lost him anywhere, it was really hard to find him because all old men had that jacket and that colour and the same hat, and then you'd have to go round shouting "Grandad, Grandad," but they'd all turn round, so you never knew if you'd found the right one.
Was it like that episode of Father Ted where they're trying to get Father Jack out the old people's home? They all just look the same.
They all look the same. They all look the same. She's also got a matching fawn hat, adorned with like a bejewelled brooch as well in the front of it, which is quite fancy. She has got the odd like adornment, does Mrs Arnott, to sort of just to flashy up what she's wearing. Louise at the meeting is in, and I quite like this. It was like a lilac and white vertical wave patterned knitted blouse. There's lots going on there. So let me just pick that apart. The lilac that she had matched the skirt as well, but it had like white knitted waves that went up the side of each of both sides of the top. It was lovely. It was really nice, and I think it made me look at her and recognise that she does look different in this series. The woman that plays Louise, she just looks. I don't know what it is. There's just something that looks different about her.
It's only a year apart, but yeah. I concur with that. She does look. There's something about her.
There is something about her. At the disco later on, I'm just jumping ahead a little bit, she's in like a black and white zebra / palm leaf / other animal print long jacket over like a black, I don't know if it's like a trouser suit or a top and trousers, but it's quite a lively looking long jacket. But it looked really cool, and I think you could go into like shops on the high street now and get something probably similar, or at least a dress or something using that print. That print doesn't look old-fashioned like a lot of the fashions in this series do. There's something about it that's quite reminiscent of today's fashions. Kirk is in that great jacket again. He sort of alternates between his Tony Manero jacket and this grey jacket with the sleeves rolled up, a la Miami Vice, with a red shirt underneath. And Kate at the disco is in a blue and white patterned vest sleeve dress with an elasticated waist. There's lots of beads and earrings going on as well in this episode from the women, just to sort of like smarten up what they've got on. We've mentioned before as well about Ricky Fortune's Gary Glitter outfit. It's just like finally shiny silver.
Just looks cheap as well, doesn't it? It looks
cheap.
Awful.
There's nothing redeeming really about what he's got on.
What about Freddie and the Dreamers? What were they? What was their attire?
They were just in like shirts and pants, weren't they? It was very sort of plain. Nothing much. Wasn't really exciting. For a band, I don't know. It went from like one extreme to the other, didn't it? There's like tinfoil Ricky.
Yeah.
To just guys looking like they're at a funeral.
There was a line which is, it's almost Blink If You Miss It, where Freddie says to Ricky, "Hello, Ricky, when did you get out?" Which is a callback to him being in prison.
Yeah.
For smuggling drugs. But I think it was almost missed and didn't land.
Were we supposed to sort of read into that they knew each other really? But I didn't think Ricky had gone to prison. I thought the rest of the band had. Again,
it's just this one's not tied up. Unless the idea is that he's just assumed to have gone down with his mates. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's a sloppy one, isn't it? Let's be honest.
It is. There's just lots of things that don't really fit together. Not my favourite of the episodes so far, I must admit.
No, I think it's the lowest rated on IMDb, 6 point something.
That's quite low, isn't it?
Yeah, the rest of them are all 7.7, 7.8 type thing, you know.
Okay.
But next week's one is a bit of an improvement. This one brings Will Bates back in, Ralph Bates' real son.
Little Toby.
Playing Toby. And the episode's actually called Problems with Toby.
Oh, cripes.
Where,
Is Wendy in it?
Wendy's in it, but she's quite sympathetic in this one. She's not a horrible cow in this one.
Okay. Not a bitch and a witch.
No, she's not, no. So you just reminded me that I tried to rhyme Lemensky with Kachansky. And I'm cringing at myself.
You can follow us at SADDO Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, where we post rare photos and videos on Dear John, Fawlty Towers and The Good Life and more. We have a Facebook page you can find by searching SADDO Podcast, and we also have a growing Facebook group that you can join and contribute to with discussions and memes and rarities that you might find yourself. This is where we post the episodes we deep dive each week, and for now it might be the only place where you can catch Dear John. Subscribe to our newsletter as well by visiting our website saddo.club, where you can also get more information about us, read our blog, shout us a coffee, or take our super tricky Good Life and Fawlty Towers quizzes. Get in touch, email us at saddopodcast@gmail.com, and subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes.
We're quite hopeful that we'll have a special guest interview lined up week after next, aren't we?
I hope so.
If all the stars align, we might be able to have a little bonus episode. I'm not sure about time differences. It might just be you, mightn't it, doing this?
It might.
No pressure, Al. No pressure.
Sozzers.
So join us again next week where we'll have a look at Series 2, Episode 3, Problems with Toby.
Yeah.
I'll see thee.
Bye.
Dear John, by the time you read these lines, I'll be gone. Life goes on, right or wrong. Now it's all been said and done, dear John. Seems we've sung love's last song, dear John.